Hello everybody. I'm here to share some tips with you on how I changed out the oil pan gasket in my 2011 BMW 335i xDrive all-wheel drive. And the biggest hurdle that we encountered, my buddy and I, was this. That nut right there that holds the axle in place. It was totally corroded, like almost welded to the axle. So this is the driver's side. What we did is we had a Dremel, and with a cylinder type of sander, roughly this dimension right here, I'm just using a pencil for an example. We went around this nut and basically threaded it from a 36 millimeter nut. And here's the passenger side. I got lucky. This is in great shape. That came off no problem. But we ground it down around the perimeter of this nut, and I believe we ended up using like a 32 millimeter nut, and breaker bar, it came off. Had to hammer the socket on there a little bit, get a good bite, but that worked. I saw another YouTube video out there where a gentleman used a Dremel, and he cut a slot right up here on this nut. He took a chisel and a hammer and just kind of backed it off that way, and that'll work too. But this method here, we got lucky and it worked. Before you take anything apart on top to start this project, do this first. If you don't do this first, you're not doing it. You're going to a shop. Another thing, this is, like I said, a 2011 BMW 335i xDrive, all-wheel drive, N55. A lot of videos out there showing the N54s how to do this, rear-wheel drive, but not too many with the all-wheel drive, because these front axles, they have to come out of this differential, because the differential is attached to the oil pan. All right? And you don't have to take a whole lot off to drop the subframe. There's only 3 items you have to drop. This right here, and a bolt back here, and a bolt right here. All this comes down. And on the driver's side, you have the, I think this is called the headlight leveling sensor. That comes off, but the rotor can stay on, the caliper can stay on. They're not going anywhere. And as far as dropping the subframe is concerned, my tow hook, as you can tell, we had to grind off this portion right here. We had to grind it off so it would seat all the way in to the top of the block. So you can use your engine support bar, which I got from Harbor Freight. It's right over there. Tool you have to have. All right, I removed the fan. One or two bolts comes right off. Screws comes right off, because you have to release the serpentine belt, because there's 3 bolts on the power steering pump. That's also attached to the oil pan. That has to come off. Okay, it doesn't come off out of the car. You just take 3 bolts out, push it off to the side, and then you're good to go. And what else? As far as these hoses go, there's a couple support bars, whatever. There's a nut on the bottom here and a bolt on top of some frame that has to come out. Pain in the butt to get to. This coolant hose, there's 3 bolts. 2 that are easy to get to, and 1 up in this corner. You can really see, but it's kind of pain in the butt to get to, but you know, you'll figure it out and get after it. All right, so you drop those, and there's 2 bolts that holds the steering frame to the subframe. If I said that right, I don't know. But anyways, you take those 2 out, those 2 nuts and bolts out, and I took a bungee cord and I just push all the stuff toward the radiator out of the way. That's it. You don't have to mess with the steering linkage, you know, just no power steering fluid hose you gotta disconnect. All that stays right there. We took the 1 nut for each engine mount bolt. We took that off with some long extensions. And then after that, there's 6 bolts that holds the subframe to the car. So basically, underneath here, this comes off the fan. It's a coolant hose, the 3 bolts I talked about earlier. that comes out. And there's these two brackets right here. Those have to come out. Then you drop the sway bar. There's 2 bolts on each side for a total of 4 bolts. And you do not have to disconnect the sway bar over here. Like I said, you take a bungee cord, you just move all that out of the way. Obviously, the steel plate comes down, and all the other I don't know, splash guards or whatever you want to call them, all those come out. That's pretty straightforward stuff. But yeah, that was it. We just dropped those 6 bolts. There's 3 bolts inside the subframe. Had a jack. We just lowered it, pulled it out. Had access to the to remove the front axles out of the differential. And you want to buy new seals for the differential. And I also drained it out, the fluid, and put new fluid in there. All right. And went to the BMW dealership in Traverse City, Michigan. And this is it right here. It didn't take the whole thing. So all you need is one of these and you're good to go. And as far as removing the differential plugs, my friend MacGyvered this thing right here. You just take the head of the bolt, stick that in differential seals there, and just back it out. They're pretty tight, so you have to work on that. As far as removing the axle or the hub, there's a special tool for that. We kind of banged on it a little bit and finally got it done. But I think next time I'm going to buy a tool or rent one. But yeah, that comes out. As when you go to put it back together, this is a tool you have to get that axle back in the hub. Less than 5 minutes. We had both sides put it back in. This thing right here is just a lifesaver. I think we got it from fcpeuro.com, but just a 27 millimeter socket there. You just screw it on the threads here. Screw it in as far as it goes. And this guy here, it goes to that, and it pulls it right through. Like I said, less than 5 minutes, we got this thing back on the hub. So here's what the new ones look like. Big difference. 36 millimeter socket for that. There's an old crappy one that was used a lot of F-bombs on that, but we finally got it out. But yeah, you have to get this off first for this project. If you don't get this thing off, you're not doing it. Another thing I wish I would have done, I wish I would have bought a new gasket for the crankshaft housing there. You know, since you got the fan out, it's pretty simple to get access to the crankshaft seal there, front seal. But down the road, if that's leaking, I can just pull the fan out. You can easily get to it. That's not a big deal. But the gasket, the oil pan gasket itself was just totally, it was shot. It was unbelievable. My garage floor had oil on it for a reason, and that's why. Also, I also replaced the oil level sensor. It probably wasn't necessary to the whole sensor, but at a minimum, you have to change out this gasket, this O-ring. Look at this thing. It's brittle, it's flattened out, its pieces are missing. That's a mess. But I just went and bought an off-market sensor and just be safe. What else? You don't have to take a whole lot off the top of the car. You know, these things I'd have to replace and remove. They're good to go. You have to take off this section here, the air filter and everything else, so the engine support bar and this guy here can do their thing. Other than that, that's about it. As far as the level of difficulty goes, I work for the post office. A little bit mechanically inclined, not the best. Last month, I replaced the starter, because I had to, because it wouldn't work anymore, which entails removing the intake manifold, all this stuff here. And that was a project a lot easier than I thought it would be. You can definitely do it. Once you get this intake manifold off, man, the starter's right there. It's not too bad. And I also changed the water pump and thermostat in here. First time I did it, it was not fun. But after you do it a couple times, it's really not all that bad. So, hope this helps. And any questions, leave me something in the comment section. Have a good day, folks. And as far as getting the car up off the ground so you can work on it safely, Here's my setup. Let me show you real quick. So basically I backed my car up on these guys right here, right? Backed up on that. And then I was able to get a floor jack underneath the car and jack up the front end by the subframe, by the center mount right there. Okay, jack it all the way up, put the jack stands underneath it. And then what I did was I grabbed a couple 2x4s, load the jack, grab a couple 2x4s, put it on the floor jack so I get more clearance, get it up higher, and that worked just fine. All right, so you're not really gonna spend a whole heck of a lot of time down here, really. I don't know what. There's plenty of room, plenty of clearance. I did it, no problem whatsoever. So that is my setup as far as getting the car up off the ground. All right.